Hey everybody, this is Barry Johnson. I want to welcome you back to another edition of Studio Talk. You know, pigs don't fly, birds do. Whatever made you think pigs fly? Let's get to it. Hey piggy flying, good to see you. Okay, so I've got several videos out there that talk about DSP, okay? And I have very strong feelings on DSP, assuming that you have a modern day computer over the last year or so, right? That's fully spec'd out. You've spent some money on it. It's a powerful computer. Okay, if you're worrying about DSP, you're already spending a lot of money on the tools that it takes to run that DSP today, whether that's UAD or Avid's HDX or Carbon, however you want to look at it, okay? So if you want to do that, you're already spending a little bit of money. So, so I have very strong feelings about that. These new computers, and I'm going to speak specifically in this for the sake of this video, and what I'm about ready to say about Apple Silicon would apply to the Ryzen 9 or the new Intel i9 that was just recently released. If you're using those level of processors, what I'm about ready to talk about will apply to that, as well as Apple Silicon, whether you're on a Windows side of the PC, the Windows side or the Mac side, it doesn't really matter. It will be relevant to this discussion. So, I've got a lot of videos out there basically saying today, with the advent of the power of these computers, we are finally at that point to where DSP, quite frankly, is just not needed anymore. I've got videos out there demonstrating me running 1,000 tracks with plugins all over the place, all with a 32 buffer, no problem. Bunch of virtual instruments. I think another one with like 150 tracks with a ton of virtual instruments, all loaded down along with a bunch of plugins. All of that, all at a 32 buffer, tracking with the equivalent of no audible latency, okay? And so I know for a fact that can be done because I've been doing it, all right? I have an I/O back there that has HDX built into it, being the Avid Carbon. Since I got the Apple Silicon M1 Pro MacBook Pro, I have not bothered to waste my time doing a single DSP-based plugin since then. I've not needed to. I can run everything in real time without the need for that. I can set my buffer at 32 and never worry about it ever again. And so we're in that situation. So, in these videos, I get comments and I get people suggesting that no, DSP is great. You can't track without plugins. You need that if you don't want latency and all that stuff. And what they're doing is coming to the discussion potentially of what things were like when they bought that hardware. If you're an HD user or HDX user, you've convinced yourself in your mind that you've got to have that because for the longest time, you had to have that, okay? And so you've not bothered to really work outside of that because it's what you have, it's what you own, and you use it day in and day out every day. So oftentimes you can lose perspective, lose a little bit of touch to see where things are. You may not be in a situation to try other things, and so, or maybe you're just happy with what you got, and you're just sticking with it. Well, what I'm here to talk about today is do you ever ask yourself maybe if you're still right or not? Because so many people get so adamant about it and they think they need it, but they don't need it. Now, maybe if they're running a 10-year-old computer, they probably need it, all right? Well, instead of going out and buying another UAD satellite unit from anywhere from $800 to $1,300, somewhere in that price range, why don't you start setting some of that money aside and upgrade that computer where you don't need any of that anymore? Maybe you should reevaluate whether you're even invested in the UAD platform at all. Does that even make sense today, considering how many Shark processors you've got to have in the form of whatever's in your Apollo, if you have one, or keep adding on and adding on and adding on all these satellite units to give you more power to run their plugins, all right? You don't need to do that anymore. I'm here to tell you, if your goal is to track with no latency, you simply don't need to do that anymore. And frankly, I've been actually doing that for quite some time, like years, and never had a problem with it, okay, when I was on HD native. I never had a problem with any of that on my 12-core Mac Pro from 2009, right? I never had any problems with that computer. So I don't understand this. You guys really need to start thinking about this. Do you really, really, really need it? And I encourage you to give it a try. Use your DAW, right? But do not use any UAD plugins. If you don't own non-UAD plugins, then go subscribe to BrainWorks or something for a couple of months. Spend $30, $40 to test it out. Start pulling up some old sessions that you have that maybe maxed out your system. Start rebuilding that session with just native plugins. See what you get. I think you'll be surprised. Now, does this apply to everybody in every situation? No. Are there some people out there for unique situations that still require? Yes. But for the vast majority, overwhelmingly majority, definitely almost 100% of home users, okay? And I would argue probably 70% of professional users these days simply just don't need it anymore. They think they do because they've always had to use it. They've had to do it in the past, so they just think it's still necessary. But it's not. Test it. Try it out. Prove me wrong. I guarantee you, do everything you can to prove me wrong. But it's got to be on a modern computer. If it's not on a modern computer, you don't know, okay? A lot of people like to trash the power of the Apple Silicon, but you're just an idiot. You don't know what you're doing, okay? You're just trying to justify why it's not as powerful as it is to justify your owning of DSP. Well, I'm sorry, that's not being objective. And I think you should be objective, right? And so I think you really should start reconsidering your thought process of whether you truly need that or not. Now, if you've not yet invested in DSP and you're considering maybe going out and buying an Avid Carbon, maybe you're interested in buying a used HDX card now that you can do the hybrid engine, okay, where even in the biggest of sessions, you don't need more than one HDX card anymore because of the hybrid engine, because you can run everything else natively on your computer. And when you're mixing, you don't really need low latency recording for the most part. And you can keep your buffer high and it's a non-issue. So, there's a lot of things, a lot of ways to do that. Or whether you're going to go into and invest in U8E's platform, which is the second biggest DSP-based type system. Maybe you should really reconsider whether you're going to go down that road because it's an incredibly expensive road. Those of you who've already gone down it, if you're being honest with yourself, you know that. Now, you may say it's worth it. I have a hard time believing that, knowing what's out there today. I believe you believe that, but I know for a fact there's just no reality to that for the most part. Does UAD make some of the greatest plugins out there? Yes. Is the competition right on their their tails? Absolutely. Yes, they are. Is a lot of the competition doing stuff equally as well as UAD's best plugins? You better freaking believe it. Don't kid yourself. Okay. There was a time that there was simply no other discussion about the quality of UAD plugins. That was a time when they dominated everything, and that time it was justified. Sorry, that time has passed. You got to ask yourself, are you still living in that past, right? And so I'm going to tell you that DSP, quite frankly, is just no longer needed anymore. If you invest in, either build yourself a super powerful modern day computer or you buy an Apple Silicon computer, okay? I'm going to just tell you, it's not necessary. It's just not. You want to hang out and wait for the new Mac Mini Pro coming out that will have the M1 Pro and M1 Max in it, supposedly. All right. That might be a worthy contender to wait for. Okay. If you want to build yourself a Ryzen or an Intel machine with the most recent processors where that processor alone is $700. Okay. But it may be worth it to you to get that kind of a power depending on what your needs are. So many people ultimately end up buying more power than their needs actually are. Some people don't have the money to buy more power that have desperate need for more. And so you've got to figure out how to get that. And is that money best invested in DSP type systems, whether it's buying another HDX card or buying more satellite units or adding Apollo when you don't need the additional IO or anything like that? You're just getting it for the conversion and for the DSP that's on it. That's it. All those things are super expensive. Is that money wisely spent there? That's where you got to ask yourself the question. So if you're a DSP user and you're absolutely convinced you use it, then try the test I talked about. Be open-minded, be objective. It's in your best interest to be open-minded and objective, right? We can convince ourselves of anything we want in this world and believe it ourselves, regardless of whether it has any truth or reality to it, right? That's one, I've always been fascinated by human nature. I really pay attention to people, how they think and how they process stuff. And I've definitely learned that, right? You can convince yourself anything you want, it becomes true to you because you've told yourself that enough. Instead of actually saying, I don't really know if that's the case anymore. Maybe that was the case at some point. Let me validate this today and see if that's still relevant. Because if I'm going to make a decision how I'm going to spend my money, I want to spend that wisely. And I don't want to continue to go down a rabbit hole that's stuck in the past and not necessarily truly evaluates where we are today. All right. So think about these things. Think about them long and hard. For those of you on DSP, I encourage you to really test that out. Put your comments. Let us know what you find. Now, Don't go putting a bunch of comments down there if you're truly not testing it, okay? Because you and I both know that'll be a load of crap, a load of BS, all right? Put it to the test, be honest, be objective, and put your comments down below. Let's talk about it. Let's learn from each other. Let's figure this out. For those of you contemplating going into the DSP world, I'm going to tell you, you better take a second look at it and see if your money is not well spent somewhere else. So that's it for this. I'm wrapping up this particular video. Hopefully you found it helpful. If you do, hit that like, that subscribe, and that notification bell for me wherever my hands particular fall on the screen. I don't think they fell anywhere near that today. Sorry about that. Please do that. It helps me grow the channel, helps me get content like this out to you folks so I can help as many people as possible. And so that is the goal of this channel, to help folks, okay? And hopefully, you don't have to agree with everything I say. I don't expect that. I'm not naive. I get it. And I'm not always right? And so all I'm going to do is give you my 2 cents. You can decide whether it applies to you, whether it's valuable information for you or not, or you can choose to just discount it and say, nah, don't worry about it. Okay, that's fine. You can do that, right? But I encourage you at least be honest with yourself, right? So until next time, have a wonderful day.